Life often feels like a series of obstacles and heartbreaks, especially when confronted with the bitter sting of racism. It's a painful reality, one where people are judged and rejected simply because of their skin color or background. But remember, the night's darkness is never permanent. The scars we carry can be reminders of our strength and resilience. Just as Barack Obama has shown the world, no matter the odds, we can rise above. Every small step we take, no matter how insignificant it seems, moves us closer to the light. So even when life feels overwhelmingly unfair, never forget that your journey could spark miracles for you and for everyone around you. If you're facing tough times or feeling like life is too unfair to bear, stay strong. Listen to this story and don't forget to share it with your loved ones. Subscribe to our channel for more meaningful stories and always remember to hold on. Barack Hussein Obama, born on August 4, 1961 in Honolulu, Hawaii, came from a family with roots in two different worlds. His father, Barack Obama Sr., hailed from Kenya, while his mother, Ann Dunham, was a white woman from Kansas. From an early age, Barack was aware of his differences, but it wasn't until a harsh experience at the age of 10 that he truly understood the painful impact of racism. Barack had always loved basketball. The court was his sanctuary, a place where he could escape his troubles and focus on the game. But one afternoon, as he arrived at the playground with his friends, the atmosphere felt different. A group of older white kids was gathered in a circle, staring at him. As he dribbled the ball, one of them yelled, "You can't play here, go back!" To Africa. Barack froze. He couldn't understand why they were singling him out. Another kid sneered, "He can't even play ball. He's too dark. He's only fit for farm work." The harsh laughter of the group pierced through his chest like 1,000 needles. He tried to ignore it and keep playing, but one of the boys grabbed the ball from him and threw it away. "Leave now," the boy taunted. Tears welled up in Barack's eyes as he picked up the ball. Despite his desire to stand his ground, he walked away silently, his heart heavy with sorrow. At home, he found his mother sitting at the table, reading a book. He tried to act as if nothing had happened, but Anne immediately sensed something. "I was wrong. What's bothering you, Barry?" she asked gently, using his family nickname. "It's nothing, Mom," he replied, his voice trembling, but Anne could tell he was holding something back. After a few moments, Barack opened up, telling her everything that had happened. Anne listened quietly, then set her book down and pulled him into a warm embrace. "Barry," she said softly, "remember this. Your skin color doesn't define who you are. It's the things you do, the value you bring to the world. That's what matters." Barack looked up at his mother, his eyes still filled with tears. "But why do they hate me? Just because I'm different?" he asked. Anne paused before replying. "The world can be unfair, sweetheart, but you must learn to be strong. You have to show them you are more than just the color of your skin. You are you, Barry. You can do anything you set your mind to." Over time, Barack found comfort in the books his mother gave him. One in particular stood out to him. I Have a Dream by Martin Luther King Jr. As he read, the powerful words of equality and freedom filled him with hope. He began to dream of a world where no one would be judged by the color of their skin. Yet the harsh reality of racism still lingered in his everyday life. At school, Barack was often the only student of color. One day, after acing a test, he felt proud of his achievement. But when a classmate saw his score, they whispered, "The teacher must have given him a high grade out of pity." Those words stung deeper than the insults he had endured on the playground. Barack wondered if he had truly earned his success, or if people only saw him through the lens of pity. Instead of giving up, he decided to prove them wrong. He worked, harder than ever, studying day and night, joining clubs, and striving to be the best he could be. One rainy afternoon, as the soft showers fell around him, Barack sat alone on a quiet beach. He gazed out at the vast ocean, thinking of his father, who had left Kenya when Barak was just a young boy. Though his father seldom wrote, Barak had learned of his father's pride in Kenya and the struggles the people there faced. As he sat there, Barak made a vow to himself. My life won't be defined by their hate. I will rise above it. Barak stood tall, looking at the vast horizon where the ocean met the sky, carrying with him a newfound determination. I will become someone my parents can be proud of, he thought. The struggles he'd faced, the weight of racism, had not broken him. Instead, it became a fire that ignited his spirit, a fire that would guide him through the hardships of life, pushing him toward a destiny that would not only transform his own life, but also impact the history of America. In 1967, after his parents' divorce, Barak's mother Anne remarried an Indonesian man named Lolo Suro. The family moved to Jakarta, a far cry from the familiar beaches of Hawaii, the basketball courts, and the painful confrontations with prejudice. Jakarta in the 1960s was a city full of noise, chaos, and conflict. Here, Barak quickly realized that race was not the primary divider in this new world. Instead, it was poverty, social injustice, and the constant struggle for survival. Their new home was small, situated on a dirt road that became a muddy path after tropical rains. Anne worked tirelessly, homeschooling Barak and emphasizing the importance of education. Barry, life may not be fair, she would often say, but knowledge is the key to overcoming any challenge. Despite feeling out of place at times, Barak embraced his new life. He quickly learned to speak Indonesian and adjusted to the spicy food, the hot sun, and the traditional games his new friends enjoyed. One day, while walking home, Barak noticed a group of children surrounding an elderly man. The man was thin, dressed in ragged clothes, trying to sell boiled eggs from an old bamboo basket. The children mocked him, calling him a loser. One child snatched an egg and ran away while the others laughed cruelly. Barak stood frozen, wanting to help, but unable to act. The guilt weighed heavily on him as he walked away, his heart aching. Later, at home, he shared the experience with his mother. After a long pause, Anne said, "Barry, injustice doesn't only happen to people like us. Everywhere, the disadvantaged suffer, but what matters is how you choose to face it." These words would become a guiding light for Barak, helping him realize that injustice was not just a personal problem, but a global issue. It was a cause he felt compelled to confront. Barak's stepfather, Lolo Suro, was a calm and pragmatic man who took Barak to busy markets and poor suburbs to show him the harsh reality of inequality. Some people are born with everything, Lolo would say, while others have to fight for every meal. Life was not fair, Lolo explained, but the most important thing was learning to navigate this world with wisdom and strength. One day at school, an incident occurred that Barak would never forget. During a class introduction, when it was his turn to speak, he said in broken Indonesian, "Hello, my name is Barry. I am from America." The classroom erupted in laughter. A boy at the back of the room shouted, "You don't look like an American. You're so dark." The entire class joined in the mocking laughter. Barak's face turned red with embarrassment. Despite the teacher's attempt to calm the class, the sting of the incident remained in his heart. At home that evening, Barak shared the experience with his mother. Anne hugged him tightly and whispered, "You don't have to be like anyone else. You are who you are, and that's special enough." Her love and support gave him the strength to rise above the taunts and find pride in who he was. Despite the challenges they faced, Anne always found time to teach Barak about history, culture, and the values that would shape him. One evening, she handed him a book about Mahatma Gandhi. "Read this, Barry," she said. "Gandhi taught the world that true strength lies not in violence, but in patience and courage." Barak read the book with great attention. Inspired by Gandhi's small but impactful actions, he began to dream of using wisdom and compassion to change the world around him, a dream that would shape his future in ways he could never have imagined. The years Barack spent in Indonesia were a time of profound personal growth. He learned to endure adversity, but more importantly, he nurtured a desire to make a difference in the world. This desire would one day take him to places he never thought possible, leading him to fight for justice, equality, and a brighter future for all. In 1971, Barack returned to Hawaii to live with his grandparents, Stanley and Madeline Dunham. The transition back to Hawaii marked a turning point in his life, one where he faced the internal struggle of identity. Hawaii's tropical beauty contrasted with the personal challenges Barack was about to face, but it was here, among his family, that he began to understand who he truly was and the man he was destined to become. As Barack settled into his new life in Hawaii, the change from Jakarta was stark. The tropical beauty of Hawaii offered a completely different atmosphere, one that should have felt like a fresh start. Yet for Barack, the difference in skin color was a constant reminder of his place in the world. His grandparents, who loved him dearly, sometimes unknowingly expressed social prejudices that had never occurred to him before. Barack was admitted to Puno School, a prestigious institution in Hawaii on a scholarship, but here, he faced more than just the pressures of academics. He was met with judgmental glances and questions that revealed an underlying discomfort with his race. Puno School was predominantly white and Asian, and Barack became one of the few students of color. On his very first day, a group of classmates approached him asking, "Why is your hair like that? Have you ever gotten sunburned?" Barack smiled awkwardly, unsure of how to respond. These seemingly innocent questions stirred a sense of insecurity within him, making him feel that he didn't quite belong in the white American world, nor did he completely fit in with the Asian students around him. One day, Barack confided in his grandfather about a classmate who had called him a derogatory name. Stanley, embarrassed, simply said, "You have to ignore that, Barry. People are just joking." But the response left Barack feeling disappointed. Even his closest family members didn't truly understand the pain he was experiencing. During his years with his grandparents, Barack also learned about his father through letters sent from Kenya. Barack Obama Sr. seemed like an ideal, intellectual, well-read, but absent from the most important moments of Barack's life. He would read and reread his father's letters, trying to understand a man he never really knew, and wondered if his father had faced similar struggles with identity. One of the most memorable events occurred when Barack and his grandfather went to a department store. As Barack was looking at a pair of sneakers, a sales clerk approached and asked, "Are you sure you can afford them?" Anger surged inside Barack, but before he could say anything, his grandfather pulled him away, offering a simple explanation. "Barry, don't mind them. Some people just don't know how to behave." But Barack couldn't accept this explanation. To him, it wasn't just bad manners. It was a blatant injustice that he couldn't easily ignore. To cope with the isolation he felt, Barack turned to books. He read about Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., and other civil rights leaders. Through their stories, Barack realized that his pain was not unique. Millions of people of color had faced similar injustices. The story of Martin Luther King Jr. left a deep impression on him, making him feel that he was carrying on the legacy of those who had fought before him. He began to see his existence as part of something larger than himself, a greater cause. Barack's grandmother, Madeline, was the one who understood him best. One evening, as he sat reading, she quietly approached him and asked, "Barry, how are you feeling?" Barack opened up about how out of place he felt at school and the discrimination he faced every day. Madeline hugged him and whispered, "You are special, Barry. Not everyone can see it, but one day you will prove your worth." Her words helped him realize that the hardships he faced were not meant to break him, but to drive him forward. "I can't change the way other people see me," he thought, "but I can change the way I see myself." This became his mantra, a source of strength that helped him get through the difficult days at Puno. He focused on his studies, nurtured his dream of breaking societal stereotypes, and began to believe that he could rise above the judgment of others. His years in Hawaii were a time of profound personal discovery. Barack not only confronted racism, but also began to understand more about himself. It was during this time that he first began to form thoughts about his mission. A mission to change the world for himself and for those who had been marginalized. In 1979, Barack left Hawaii to attend Occidental College in Los Angeles. This decision marked the beginning of his exploration into a larger world, one where he hoped to find answers to his questions about himself and society. Occidental was known for its cultural diversity, but as soon as Barack stepped onto campus, he realized that racism was still prevalent. There were fewer black students than at Puno, and subtle discrimination was present in every glance and every word. During an American history class, a white student asked, "Why do we keep talking about racism? It's in the past." The words felt like a knife to Barack's heart. He looked around the room and saw most students nodding in agreement. But Barack couldn't stay silent. He raised his hand and said, "The past is not history to those who live with it every day. If we don't learn to face our history, how can we change the future?" This moment marked the first time Barack publicly stood up for his ideals. His voice trembled, but after class, several other black students approached him, thanking him for speaking up on their behalf. It was in this moment that Barack realized the importance of being a voice for those who were not heard. At Occidental, he became friends with a group of activist students, both black and white. They gathered frequently at a small cafe near campus, discussing political, social, and racial issues. A close friend named Regina, an older black student, helped Barack understand the civil rights movement. She often spoke about her participation in protests and the struggle for equality. "We cannot sit idly by," Regina would say, "or else what? Martin Luther King Jr. and those who came before will have been in vain." This statement resonated deeply with Barack, awakening in him a desire to contribute to social change. He realized that his education could not just be for personal advancement, it had to be for the greater good. Barack began spending more time participating in community activities in the poorer areas of Los Angeles, driven by a newfound purpose to make a difference, not just for himself, but for others as well. In New York, where people of color were the majority in certain neighborhoods, Barack encountered families living in poverty, facing violence and discrimination every day. One evening, while at a church gathering, an older man pulled him aside and said, "You are a smart young man, but remember, being smart is not enough to change reality. You must act." These words resonated deeply with Barack, sparking a shift in his thinking. He began attending political meetings, participating in demonstrations for black students, and organizing fundraisers for the poor. One day, after attending a demonstration against educational segregation, Barack received an anonymous note slipped under his dorm room door. It read, "Go back to Africa. You don't belong here." Holding the letter in his hands, Barack felt a wave of anger and pain. But instead of allowing fear or bitterness to control him, he decided to turn it into motivation. He shared the letter with his friends, and together, they decided to organize a public discussion about racism at the school. During the event, Barack stood in front of a crowd for the first time, his voice steady despite the nerves. His eyes sparkled with passion as he spoke. "We can't choose where we were born. We can't change the color of our skin, but we can choose how we respond to injustice. And I believe that if we unite, we can do miracles." His words not only inspired the black students, but also attracted the attention of many white students. Some professors began to see him differently, not just as another student, but as a future leader. After 2 years at Occidental, Barack realized that to continue developing his ideals, he needed a new environment. He made the decision to transfer to Columbia University in New York, an intellectual and political hub. As he bid farewell to his friends at Occidental, he said, I will not forget what we have done here. This is just the beginning. I will continue on this path and make our dreams come true. In 1981, Barack moved to New York to attend Columbia University, one of the most prestigious universities in the United States. New York greeted him with chaos, crowds, and coldness, but it also offered a reminder that he was just one of millions of people striving for the American dream. He rented a small apartment in a working-class neighborhood filled with migrant workers and people of color. Life was not easy. The apartment was cramped and poorly furnished, and the air was often damp. But Barack didn't complain. He knew he wasn't there just to study, but to gain a deeper understanding of what it meant to be on the margins of society. From the moment he arrived at Columbia, Barack felt the invisible pressure of discrimination. Although the university prided itself on diversity and progressive ideals, there was a stark divide between student groups. White students tended to stick together, while the few students of color, like Barack, often felt excluded from meaningful conversations. One day, during a political seminar, a wealthy white student dismissed Barack's views with contempt, saying, "What do you know about politics? The areas you protect are the burden of this country." Barack, calm and composed, looked directly at the student and replied, "If you think so, try living in that area for a day. Maybe you'll realize who's really carrying this burden." While his words didn't immediately change the student's perspective, Barack knew he had planted a seed of thought. At Columbia, Barack spent much of his time in the library, immersing himself in books on philosophy, politics, history, and the works of black writers like James Baldwin and Ralph Ellison. These books not only broadened his knowledge, but also helped him connect to the struggles and aspirations of black people. Barack also began to write, keeping a journal, writing essays, and even trying his hand at poetry. One of the poems he wrote during this time read, "A little man in a big house, living in the shadow of a dead dream. Through words, he found an outlet for his feelings and desires, things he had never before had the chance to say out loud." To make ends meet, Barack took on several part-time jobs. He worked as a clerk in a small office, assisted at seminars, and even worked as a delivery man. One day, while delivering a package to a high-rise building in Manhattan, Barack was stopped in the lobby by security guards who looked at him suspiciously and asked, "What are you doing here? Do you know whose house this is?" Despite carrying a uniform and a receipt, Barack was treated as a suspect. He had to wait nearly half an hour to be identified. Although he said nothing, the experience once again reminded him of the deep-rooted injustice that still existed at the heart of American society. During his time at Columbia, Barack became increasingly involved in community organizations in Harlem, a poor yet vibrant black neighborhood in New York. It was here that he met activists who were not only talking about change, but were actively working to make it happen. One evening, Barack attended a meeting at a small church in Harlem. An older woman stood up and said, "We've been fighting for decades, but injustice continues. We need young people like you to stand up and continue the fight." Her words left a lasting impression on Barack. He looked around the room and saw the expectant eyes of the participants. That night, he understood that he could not remain on the sidelines. He had to take action. As Barack began to rise in prominence within the social activism scene, he also became a target for threats. One day, he received an anonymous call. "You are a traitor. You better shut up before it's too late." But Barack wasn't afraid. He understood that the path he had chosen would be difficult, but these threats only made him more determined to press on. He found support in his friends, who were always there to stand by him, no matter the risk. During a phone call home, Barack's mother, Ann Dunham, asked how he was doing with his studies and life. When Barack shared his struggles with her, she listened intently. Her unwavering belief in him, despite the hardships he faced, continued to provide strength during those challenging times. It was through these challenges, facing discrimination, rising to activism, and finding his voice, that Barack Obama began to shape his future and his mission to bring change to the world. He had not just learned about the injustices that surrounded him, but also about his own power to act. During his time at Harvard, Barack's mother, Ann Dunham, reminded him, "Barack, you always say that you want to change the world. But remember, the world does not change easily. You have to learn to be patient and resilient." These words became a great source of encouragement for Barack. He reflected on the challenges he had faced up to that point, understanding that they were just stepping stones for him to become stronger. He told himself that his journey, though difficult, was part of a larger process of personal growth and societal change. In 1988, after gaining experience working in the public sector, Barack made the decision to further his education by applying to Harvard Law School. When he received his acceptance letter, he knew this was a pivotal moment, not just for his career, but also for his mission to make a real difference. Harvard, one of the most prestigious law schools in the world, was a place where America's future leaders were molded. However, Barack's goals extended beyond just earning a degree. He saw this as an opportunity to build a foundation for his lifelong dream, to fight for justice, equality, and to improve the lives of disadvantaged communities. From the moment Barack stepped onto Harvard's campus, he felt the weight of the invisible pressure of curious eyes. As a student of color in a predominantly white environment, he understood that he would have to work many times harder to prove himself. The expectations placed on him were both a motivation and a burden. One day, during a class discussion, the professor asked about a complex legal issue. When Barack offered his opinion, a white student interrupted him, saying, "We don't need to hear about minority stories. The law doesn't care about emotions." The room fell silent. Despite the rude interruption, Barack did not lose his composure. He responded calmly, "The law may not care about feelings, but it is designed to protect people, and people cannot be separated from their feelings." His response not only impressed the professor, but also made many students reconsider their viewpoints. Barack realized that instead of engaging in heated arguments, he could use reason and calmness to persuade others. His composed and intellectual approach set him apart. Barack quickly distinguished himself at Harvard thanks to his sharp intellect and dedication to learning. In 1990, he made history by becoming the first black person to be elected president of the Harvard Law Review, one of the most prestigious positions for any law student. This was a significant personal achievement, but also a historic milestone, marking the advancement of people of color in a field that had been overwhelmingly dominated by white individuals. However, Barack's election as president of the Harvard Law Review was met with criticism and gossip. Some suggested that he only earned the position because of the school's diversity policy. But Barack refused to be deterred. He worked tirelessly, spending hours reading and editing articles, ensuring that the Harvard Law Review maintained the highest standards of quality. His commitment to excellence proved that he belonged, and he made a lasting impact on the institution. Barack's new position also made him a target for racist attacks. One day, he received an anonymous letter with a threatening message that read, "Harvard is no place for people like you. Go back to your seat before it's too late." While Barack showed the letter to the administration, he refused to be intimidated. Instead of retreating, he doubled down on his commitment, continuing to work hard and demonstrate his capabilities. He understood that every step he took was not just about him, it was about representing the communities he fought for. During his Bauermessage years at Harvard, Barack met Michelle Robinson, a talented young attorney working at a law firm in Chicago. Michelle was immediately impressed by Barack's intellect, but what truly stood out to her was his humility and enthusiasm. The two quickly became a couple. Michelle played a vital role in encouraging and supporting Barack during difficult times. She often reminded him, "You are not only fighting for yourself, but for those who don't have the same opportunities as you. Never forget that." Their relationship was not only romantic, but also a source of strength, helping Barack to stay focused on his purpose. With Michelle's support, Barack continued to navigate the challenges at Harvard, and together, they built a strong foundation for their future. At Harvard, Barack's legal knowledge expanded, but his ideals and leadership style were shaped as well. He realized that law is not just a set of dry terms, It is a tool for social change, a means to protect and promote human rights. Throughout his education, he embraced the principle that listening is power. No matter how much criticism or prejudice he faced, Barack always chose to listen before responding. He believed that understanding was the key to resolving conflicts, and he saw acting responsibly as an essential part of leadership. Barack's commitment to social good, even at the expense of personal sacrifice, remained a cornerstone of his character. In 1991, Barack graduated from Harvard with honors. This achievement was not just a personal milestone, but also an affirmation that racial barriers could not hinder will and effort. At his commencement ceremony, he delivered a speech that left a lasting impression. He said, "We learn not only to understand the law, but also to understand our responsibilities to society. We have the power to change, and we also have the duty to do so." Barack's words resonated deeply with those in attendance, reminding them that one's journey is never just about oneself. It carries with it a responsibility to the greater community and the potential to make a meaningful impact. After graduating from Harvard, Barack returned to Chicago, where he began working at a small law firm. However, he soon realized that this job was not enough to fulfill his deeper desire for social change. He was educated in justice and equality, and he knew that he could do more. This realization marked the beginning of his transition from a lawyer to a community organizer, and soon his focus would shift towards public service. Barack Obama could not sit idly by while injustices continued to unfold in the poor, neglected areas of Chicago. It was here, in the heart of the city, that he truly felt the weight of racism and social inequality. Obama realized that to make a meaningful difference, he could no longer simply work from the outside. He needed to enter politics and fight from within the system. Chicago was a city marked by stark contrasts. Affluent areas sat alongside underfunded, crime-ridden neighborhoods. Barack understood that in order to help these marginalized communities, he needed to effect change at the political level. With this goal in mind, Obama decided to join a non-profit organization where he could work directly with disadvantaged communities. It was in these neighborhoods that he would be able to use the skills he developed at Harvard Law School, skills that he knew would be essential to improving the quality of life for those who were struggling. Barack knew that this was where his efforts needed to be focused, as it would allow him to connect with the people and truly understand their needs. Initially, Barack Obama's political path was anything but smooth. Despite his solid academic background and exceptional communication skills, he faced many setbacks. In the 1996 Illinois Senate race, Obama went head-to-head with an experienced incumbent who had strong backing from local voters and a powerful network of financial support. Obama, on the other hand, did not have the same financial resources or political connections. However, he had something his opponent lacked: a clear vision for a more just and prosperous Chicago. Obama campaigned tirelessly, going door to door, speaking directly to the people and truly listening to their concerns. He sought to understand the issues they were facing in their daily lives. His dedication to serving the community began to win over voters. Even though critics often said that a black man like him would never win in politics, Obama was undeterred. He knew that to win, he had to not only run a campaign, but also offer tangible solutions to the real issues affecting Chicagoans. He focused on the issues that mattered most: education, housing, and social justice. Obama spoke passionately about reducing racial segregation and addressing inequality in public services. However, he also encountered overt racism during his campaign. Once, while addressing a crowd, a person from the audience shouted, "You are just a black man. You have no right to teach us." The words stung Obama, but instead of allowing them to break him, he grew even more determined to continue his fight for justice. He understood that such attacks were part of the larger struggle for equality. Despite the racism and isolation he sometimes felt from mainstream politicians, Barack Obama found unwavering support from the very community he was working to uplift. People living in the poor areas of Chicago saw him as one of their own, someone who understood their struggles and was committed to fighting for a better future. In 1996, after months of hard campaigning, Barack Obama achieved a historic victory in the Illinois State Senate election. It was a groundbreaking moment, not only for Obama but also for African American politics in the United States. Obama's victory signified a shift in public perception, a reminder that leadership could come from people who had been historically excluded from positions of power. Standing before his constituents, Obama made a powerful statement. "We won, today not because I am black, but because I believe in our ability to change and in the power of unity." His win was not just a personal triumph. It was a victory for those who had long been marginalized. It was an affirmation that politics could be reshaped and opportunities could be opened for future generations. However, Obama's journey in the Senate was far from easy. His efforts to work with colleagues in a conservative environment were often met with resistance. Many of his fellow legislators did not fully understand the problems Obama sought to address, and disagreements were frequent. But rather than being discouraged by these challenges, Obama grew stronger. He realized that the key to success lay in collaboration, even with those who held different political views. For Obama, the ultimate goal was not personal victory, but the betterment of society as a whole. Through his perseverance, Obama proved that success is not achieved by one person alone, but through the collective efforts of a united co. His high-profile victories and outspoken positions on social issues, however, made Obama the target of political enemies. Death threats began to appear in anonymous letters, and he found himself under constant scrutiny. Yet, instead of letting these threats intimidate him, Barack used them as motivation. Every criticism, every obstacle reminded him of why he entered politics in the first place: to build a more just and equitable country. He stood firm in the face of adversity, always focused on the bigger picture. As Obama's political career progressed, he began to feel that it was time to take on a larger challenge, one that would allow him to influence national politics and bring about the reforms he believed in. In 2004, after winning the Illinois State Senate election, Barack Obama announced his candidacy for the U.S. Senate. This would be a momentous opportunity to contribute on a national level, but Obama's path to the Senate would not be easy. He was once again up against a formidable opponent in Alan Keyes, another African-American man who held a more conservative political stance and had the support of conservative groups. Obama's campaign was also lacking the financial backing and support from powerful political entities that his opponent had. Once again, Barack found himself in a challenging position, but this time he had the experience, wisdom, and determination to push through the difficulties. His vision was clear, and his desire to bring about meaningful change only grew stronger. In the face of these challenges, Barack Obama's resolve would only be tested further. But it was this very struggle that would eventually propel him toward the national stage, where he would go on to become the 44th President of the United States. His journey, filled with setbacks and triumphs, would ultimately serve as a testament to the power of persistence, unity, and belief in the possibility of change. Barack Obama possessed something his opponent didn't: a fresh vision, the ability to connect with people from all walks of life, and a genuine commitment to the issues affecting ordinary people. Unlike many politicians, Obama didn't just speak in abstract terms. He actively worked to address the fundamental challenges people faced. His campaign focused on tangible solutions, from education to healthcare to job opportunities. Obama wasn't just a candidate. He became a symbol of change. His campaign resonated with people because it wasn't about political speeches or traditional campaigning. It was about solving real problems. He visited rural and impoverished areas, places many other politicians avoided, directly speaking to people and emphasizing the importance of unity across party lines. Obama called for collaboration, asking people to work together for the common good. However, his path was not without its challenges. Despite the widespread support he garnered, Obama faced fierce opposition, including constant racism, both from political opponents and some voters. The idea of a black man succeeding in American politics triggered fear in many, and his opponents worked hard to exploit this fear. They used racial themes to divide voters, and the media published malicious articles questioning Obama's background and motivations. Critics painted him as someone who was overly affiliated with black organizations, or they doubted his experience and capability to hold such an important political position. Rather than succumbing to the attacks and racism, Obama became even more determined. He focused on speaking positively and acting decisively, pushing his campaign forward with unwavering resolve. To him, racism and opposition were simply obstacles on the path to his larger goal, creating a more just and equitable society. One of the key factors that propelled him through these challenges was the strong support from the community. When Obama entered the Senate, he wasn't just the candidate of one political party or group, he was the representative of the entire Black American community and numerous other minority groups. This broad base of support gave Obama the strength he needed to rise above the attacks and show that he represented a revolutionary change, a hope for equality, and a chance for social justice. Obama's message of unity resonated not only with everyday citizens, but also with political leaders who recognized him as a person with true political ability. They stood by him because they saw him as a symbol of unity and as someone who embodied a bright future for the country. On November 2, 2004, Barack Obama won the race for the US Senate in a resounding victory. It was an important milestone, not only for his political career, but also for American politics as a whole. It proved that unity, hard work, and a belief in change could overcome the barriers of racism and division. Obama's victory speech that day was both powerful and profound. He declared, "Not only did we win today, but we proved that no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, you can change the world." His win marked the beginning of an exciting new chapter for both him and the country. In the years following his Senate victory, Barack Obama's political profile continued to rise. He became a star in the Democratic Party and an inspiration to many, especially within the African American community, but also to people all across the United States. His speeches were filled with passion and hope, and he stood as a fierce advocate for the rights of disadvantaged groups. Yet, as he prepared for the next step in his journey, he knew the challenges would only grow. In 2008, Obama made the historic decision to run for president. His entry into the race marked the beginning of one of the most unique and challenging political campaigns in American history. He was up against Hillary Clinton, a well-established and highly respected veteran of the Democratic Party, who had strong support from important political and interest groups. Clinton, the wife of former President Bill Clinton, was a formidable candidate. The idea of a black man with humble beginnings running for president stirred deep doubts in the political establishment. Once again, racial prejudice surfaced, not just from political opponents, but also from conservative groups and certain segments of society that couldn't accept the notion of a black man leading the country. On February 10, 2007, Obama officially announced his candidacy. His announcement wasn't just about his personal aspirations. It was a powerful message to the country about the importance of change, hope, and overcoming division. But as much as Obama believed in his mission, he couldn't help but reflect on the difficulties he would face. The ever-present racial prejudice, doubts about his finances, and the skepticism from voters unsure about his ability to lead. Obama's campaign broke from tradition in several key ways. Instead of relying solely on traditional campaigning methods, Obama used the power of technology and social media to connect with voters, especially the younger generation. He tapped into platforms like Facebook and Twitter to spread his message, quickly and broadly, creating an unprecedented grassroots movement. This use of technology helped him build a solid base of support, particularly among young people and minority groups who felt energized by his call for a new direction. However, Despite the innovation in his campaign, racism remained a major obstacle. Throughout the campaign, Obama had to answer questions about his identity and his ability to represent all Americans. Critics doubted his leadership capabilities, with some questioning whether a black man could truly lead the country. These attacks came not only from his political opponents, but from a segment of the electorate who could not accept that someone from Obama's background could rise to the presidency. In debates with Hillary Clinton, Obama demonstrated his intelligence, thoughtfulness, and ability to analyze complex national issues deeply. His responses were calm, measured, and focused on policy, allowing voters to see beyond the racial attacks and recognize his potential as a leader. Obama's race for the presidency was far from easy, but his campaign continued to gain momentum. Every debate, every challenge, every setback only seemed to fuel his determination to bring about the change he believed in. Through it all, Barack Obama remained a symbol of hope, progress, and unity, reminding the country that no matter where you come from, you can rise and change the world. Barack Obama's journey to the presidency was marked by his ability to remain composed and stay true to his vision of a united America. He presented feasible, accessible solutions to the problems facing many Americans, which helped him gain widespread support, including from people who had never engaged in politics before. His broad vision and unwavering confidence were key factors in overcoming doubts about his leadership abilities. Despite facing many attacks, particularly from political opponents and racist factions, Obama stood firm. His opponents often targeted him with racist comments, mocking the idea of a black man becoming president. These attacks came not only from conservative groups, but also from segments of the media. Personal threats against him and his family also persisted. Despite this, Obama responded with patience and calm, focusing on promoting unity, justice, and hope rather than responding with anger. Finally, on November 4, 2008, Barack Obama made history by becoming the first black president of the United States. His victory was not only a personal triumph, but a societal one as well, symbolizing the power of change, hope, and determination. It showed that no matter one's background, with effort and perseverance, anyone can make a difference and change the world. Upon taking office on January 20, 2009, Obama faced immediate challenges. The global financial crisis had plunged the US economy into a severe recession, and millions were struggling. Obama's economic rescue plan, which allocated billions to bail out banks, businesses, and people, helped stabilize the economy. However, this bold approach was met with criticism from opponents who felt the measures were too costly and ineffective. One of Obama's most notable achievements was the passage of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, which expanded healthcare access to millions of Americans. Despite strong opposition, particularly from Republican lawmakers, Obama remained committed to protecting the program, which became one of his key legacies. Throughout his presidency, Obama also faced criticism from racist factions within society. Even as the nation's first black president, he could not escape discriminatory comments and actions. Yet, he always stood his ground and continued to push for justice, equality, and peace for all. National security was another challenge, particularly the fight against terrorism. Obama authorized the operation that led to the death of terrorist leader Osama bin Laden and engaged in military interventions in the Middle East. These actions drew criticism, but Obama's commitment to protecting the country never wavered. On the international stage, Obama's legacy includes efforts to improve relations with Cuba, negotiate the Iran nuclear deal, and strengthen global partnerships on issues like climate change. His administration's foreign policy helped restore the US as a leading force in the world. Barack Obama's influence extended far beyond American politics. His commitment to human rights and fighting racism resonated worldwide, cementing his legacy as a global symbol of progress and solidarity. After his presidency, Barack Obama did not retreat from public life. He continued to engage in meaningful work as an advisor, speaking to communities and contributing to non-profit organizations that promote peace, justice, and equality. Despite stepping down from the political stage, Obama remained committed to the causes he believed in, advocating for positive change both in the US and around the world. Obama and his family also found moments of privacy after years of living under the constant scrutiny of the political spotlight. This time allowed him to reflect on his journey and share his experiences with the world. Among his works, his memoir, A Promised Land, stands out as a profound reflection on his life, his struggles, and his triumphs as both a man and a leader. The book reveals the complexities of his presidency, the challenges he faced, and his determination to create a fairer America. Barack Obama's legacy extends far beyond his historic role as the first Black president of the United States. His life story is one of resilience, courage, and the relentless pursuit of a vision for a more equal society. Despite facing racism, political skepticism, and personal doubts, Obama remained unwavering in his belief that a more just and inclusive America was possible. His legacy continues to inspire future generations, serving as a reminder that positive change is not only necessary but achievable. His determination to fight for justice and equality has left an indelible mark on the country and the world, and his journey remains an example for those who are dedicated to creating a better future for all. Thank you for reading this story, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more meaningful stories in the future.